Hey, my name's Carl Morgan and welcome to this video lesson. So this is going to be a two-part series in which I'm going to be looking at secondary dominants and substitute dominants. Okay, so secondary dominant seventh chords and substitute dominant seventh chords. So in the first lesson, which is this video, we're going to be having a look at the first of those, which is secondary dominant chords. So we're just going to use the example of the first A section of the song Autumn Leaves, and we're going to kind of have a look at some ways that secondary dominant chords are already used in that and can be added to kind of add interest, you know, in your improvisations or in your comping. So let's get right into it. So if you're not familiar, first of all, with like the diatonic chords in a given key, that's definitely a very important thing to have a look at. So for example, if we take the song Autumn Leaves, what we want to be able to do is know what the chords are in that key. So for example, if we do Autumn Leaves in the key of G minor, so that's with the first chord is C minor 7, we should know that the chords in the key of G minor are G minor 7, A minor 7 flat 5, B flat major 7, C minor 7, D minor 7, E flat major 7, F7, G minor 7. Oh, okay, so now we're back to the start. So that's in the minor key. Now it's good to know, you know, both, like if we have the relative minor and the relative major. So if we're in the key of G minor, the relative major key to that is B flat, okay? So B flat and G minor are kind of interchangeable. One's a minor key, one's the major key. Okay, so if we go from the key of B flat, we're just going to play those same chords from the chord B flat. B flat major 7, C minor 7, D minor 7, E flat major 7, F7, G minor 7, A minor 7 flat 5, and B flat major 7. Okay, so those are the chords in the key. And so now we're going to have a look at Autumn Leaves and work out what happens in terms of those chords from that key. Okay, so the first thing I like to think about in Autumn Leaves is that the first part of the melody starts off in a major key. Okay, so that part of the melody, okay, when we play that part, that's kind of, to me, in a major key. And then it goes kind of to the relative minor. So we have A minor 7 flat 5, D7, G minor 7. Okay, so once again, the chords, the chords should be written below on the screen. So let's just break it down. So first of all, we're thinking the key of B flat for the first couple of chords, all right? So it's like C minor 7, F7, B flat major 7, which is a 2-5-1 in the key of B flat, okay? And then we go to the E flat major 7, which is the 4 chord, okay? And then we do like a 2-5-1 into G minor, okay? Because you can have either major 2-5-1s or minor 2-5-1s. So the major 2-5-1 is like C minor 7, F7, going to B flat major 7. Minor 2-5-1 is going to be A minor 7 flat 5, D7, G minor 7, okay? So you notice one thing, with the chords that we talked about before in the key of G minor, it's actually like the chord that is built from the note D is going to be a D minor 7. If we're talking the chords built from the scale from G natural minor. Okay. So what we have to do, here's our first example, you could say, of a secondary dominant chord, is really, I mean, I don't know if you'd really call it a secondary dominant, you might, but it's basically like the D7 is kind of borrowed from the harmonic minor mode. Okay, so here we're all in the key of B flat major or G minor, still in the key, and then when we get to this one, it has this F sharp in it, the D7. Okay, and the F sharp doesn't fit in the key of B flat or G minor. Okay, because it's in between the F and the G, F sharp. Okay, so we're going to have to kind of think that is coming from a different scale or something. So there's the first example of a secondary dominant. You could say it doesn't fit the key, but it's going to a chord that's in the key. Okay, so now okay, so it's a really like strong sound. The sound of D7 going to G minor is a very strong sound. Same as F7 going to B flat major 7 is very, it's a very strong resolution. So yeah, you can have a 5-1 in a minor key or a 5-1 in a major key. That's no problem. All right, so now let's look at the next example. What we're going to do is we're going to play the exact same chord progression, and we're just going to add an extra dominant 7th chord going back to the beginning of the chord progression. Okay, so we have C minor 7, F7, B flat major 7, E flat major 7, A minor 7 flat 5, D7, G minor 7, then we have a G7. Okay, so this is our first definite secondary dominant. It's a G7 going back to the C minor 7. Okay, and so because we worked out that, at the start we started with 2-5-1, so C minor is the 2 chord. Now the G7 is obviously doesn't fit in the key of G minor or B flat major. Okay, so if we're going kind of back to a 2-5-1 in B flat major, you'll find that G7 does not fit in that key. So what that is, it's a secondary dominant chord because it has that same resolution, the same as a F going to a B flat, and the same as a D going to a G. This is this kind of 5-1 relationship. Okay, so we have G7 going to C minor 7. All right, and even though C minor 7 is not a 1 chord, it's actually the 2 chord, it still works fine to have this G7 going to the C minor. So, in music, in harmonic analysis, you would call that a 5 of 2, okay? Because it's the 5 chord of 2, because we often refer to 5. The dominant, in a minor key, D7 is the 5th, built from the 5th tone of the minor scale. In the key of B flat, F7 is built from the 5th of B flat major 7. Okay, so anyway, we have this G7 going back to C minor. So in terms of like if you were to play some comping idea, okay, you can kind of hear that it goes back to F minor 7 nicely again. Okay, it's just a couple of examples of comping. There's nothing I was doing in particular, but just a few examples of how you might comp through something using the G7 to get back to the C minor. So it really adds some kind of nice interest going back. Now, in terms of improvising over this, we haven't even talked about improvising over these secondary dominants yet, really. But let's have a look at this second example, and I'm going to loop it, and then I'm going to kind of talk through improvising over it. Okay, so we've got our loop happening. So now I'm just going to talk through what I would do over this. So in the first part, there's that D7. So I played, you heard me kind of outlining the G7 going back to the C minor. Okay, so in that example, I was kind of outlining, really trying my best to outline the D7 and the G7, which are the chords that require kind of a change in scale or whatever. So let's talk about that for a second. So, it's important when we hit that D7 chord, there are some options. So I've written D7 flat 9. So what that kind of implies is that, like many of you will be familiar with, like if you have a D7 chord, you can kind of think of a diminished 7th chord built off the flat 7, the flat 9, the 3, and the 5. Okay, so if we're thinking D, here's our D bass note. Boom. Okay, so we're going to have a look at playing over the D7 chord now and really outlining that with the diminished 7th idea, which I just talked about. Okay. Okay, so hopefully some examples of playing over secondary dominance in that way. So we had the F7, which was going to the B flat major 7, which in general is not referred to as a secondary dominant. And then we had the D7, which went to the G minor, okay, which you could possibly think is a slight departure from the key, especially if you're resolving to G minor 7, because this, see, we have this F sharp here in the D7, which resolves down to the F in the G minor 7, okay? So you could kind of think of that as a secondary dominant. And then we had the G7 going back to the C minor 7. All right, and just to kind of sum up, if you're watching this far, I think I even forgot to mention at the start, but basically, we talked about these diatonic chords. If you have you can have a 5 chord. A secondary dominant is basically a 5 chord going to any one of these diatonic chords. Okay, so if we have B flat major 7, its secondary dominant is F7 going to B flat major. Okay, if we have C minor 7, its secondary dominant is G7. Okay, as we did here. That's the 5 of 2. Now, if we have D minor 7, which is the 3 chord in the chord of B, key of B flat, we have A7, okay, which is the 5 of 3. If we have E flat major 7, we have B flat 7, which is the 5 of 4. C7 is the 5 of 5. D7 is the 5 of 6. And then E7 is the 5 of 7, okay, and then F7 is the 5 of 1, or just the 5 chord. I probably should have I think in that last 30 seconds, you probably got all the information you need from this lesson. Anyway, so that was the first part on secondary dominants. Next time we're going to be having a look at substitute dominants and how to use them. Thanks for watching.